John, what the fuck are you doing?
In 1988, director John McTiernan adapted for film a novel by author Roderick Thorpe called Nothing Lasts Forever. With the help of writers Jeb Stewart and Stephen D'Souza, who are respectively responsible for films like The Fugitive and 48 Hours, and mega producer Joel Silver, the movie was greenlit and off to a solid start. The story was about a New York cop who flies to LA for a Christmas party to reconnect with his estranged wife, only for the party to be overtaken by terrorists.
Who said we were terrorists?
In the starring role, an actor was chosen after much studio pushback, and despite his lack of leading man star power, they hired Bruce Willis, who went on to become a Hollywood icon, starring in such films as 12 Monkeys, The Fifth Element, The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Armageddon, and Pulp Fiction. To fill out the cast, Reginald VelJohnson was tapped to play Sergeant Al Powell, and the late great Alan Rickman was cast for the part of Hans Gruber, rocketing up to one of the top villain performances of all time. Shot on a budget of $28 million, the film wound up grossing over $140 million, making it one of the most successful movies of the year, alongside Who Framed Roger Rabbit and Coming to America. The movie is loaded front to back with Christmas decorations, Christmas music, Christmas trees, and Christmas cheer. But to this day, the age-old question remains: is it in fact a Christmas movie? Well, folks, today we're going to do a deep dive and find out for ourselves. You know it, you love it, you watch it every year. It's John McTiernan's action classic, Die Hard.
Attention, whoever you are, this channel is reserved for emergency calls only.
No fucking shit, lady! Do I sound like I'm ordering a pizza?
What's up, beautiful people? I'm Zach, and you're watching Zack Makes Movies, the channel where we talk about...
You guessed it, Frank Stallone.
Well, I may be a little late on the upload, but it is indeed Christmas time here on the Zack Makes Movies channel. And to close it out this season, I thought we should talk about the most controversial of all Christmas films, the one and only Die Hard. Die Hard is a good enough film that it should be able to stand on its own, regardless of whether or not it is in fact a Christmas movie. So I thought we'd start this episode instead by talking about what makes this a unique script. There's specific choices throughout the script that I've always found very interesting, one of which is to have not one, not two, but three characters with the last name Johnson.
I'm Agent Johnson. This is Special Agent Johnson.
Oh, how you doing?
No relation.
That's right, we have the two agents, Agent Johnson and Special Agent Johnson, not related.
This is Agent Johnson. No, the other one.
And we have Harvey Johnson from the news station.
Eat it, Harvey.
4, 3, 2, 1.
But enough about Johnsons. Die Hard is filled with holiday cheer. It starts off with beautiful Christmas music. You have an incredible score that kind of weaves throughout holiday sounds as well as action movie soundtrack. But let's kind of run through the plot bit by bit and see what comes to mind for this holiday classic, John McTiernan's Die Hard.
Come out to the coast, we'll get together, have a few laughs.
Again, we have a fish out of water story, but this time it's a hardened New York cop who's coming to the very soft 1980s LA. He's definitely thrown off by some of the mannerisms.
Merry Christmas.
Fucking California.
And the probably very LA writers played that up well. We meet John on the plane. He seems nervous about something. The guy sitting next to him mistakes it for fear of flying, so he offers up some unsolicited advice about taking off your shoes and making fists with your toes. He's been doing it for 9 years.
Fist with your toes.
Yes, sir. Better than a shower and a hot cup of coffee.
When he reaches LA, he is met by a gentleman by the name of Argyle, who's by chance on his very first day of driving a limo. And he talks John's ear off, who, by the way, decides to sit in the front and leave the giant stuffed bear in the back seat.
CD, CB, TV, telephone, full bar, VHS.
Argyle pries about his personal life. It's a very clever way from a writing standpoint to give the audience some exposition that otherwise would seem like, okay, come on, why why you're just forcing information down our throats. But when it's a nosy character, it actually makes it very palatable and funny. Then we have him throwing on Christmas in Hollis, which is a great song, and introduced a lot of white people to Run DMC. Then we arrive at the one and only Nakatomi Plaza, a very famous fake location at this point. Argyle does something which to this day I've never understood, which is he decides to, instead of getting paid and going home and meeting up with his lady friend for Christmas Eve, he stays in a limo all night just in case John needs him to drive him somewhere. Alright, good for you, man. I drove for Uber for 5 years. I never did no shit like that. Next, John meets Ellis and his estranged wife's boss, Mr. Takagi. John and Holly awkwardly reconnect after a very funny scene with Ellis forcing Holly to show off the watch that he just bought her. Then the party begins, and John decides to take some time to himself while Holly goes and gives a speech to the troops. John does in fact take his shoes off so he can make fists with his toes, and that's where his troubles begin. Because the place is soon overtaken by terrorists.
Who said we were terrorists?
The terrorists are led by none other than Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber. This is a Eastern European group of terrorists, mostly Germanic, and they are awesome. It's a fun group. I think it's like 12 guys, and they do a really cool thing throughout the movie where John is hiding in the vents, and he's hiding in different rooms, and he's overhearing conversations, and he's got a marker, and he's marking down each of these people's names, Carl, Fritz, all these guys' names on his arm, and crossing them off as he kills them. Just a little audio lesson on the side. Try not to do this while you're talking into a microphone. It doesn't do good things for audio. So the terrorists bust in, they take all the hostages, there's about 30, 40 hostages. John is running around trying to get the police to show up. An alarm is pulled and the firefighters start coming, but they end up getting called off. John pushes until Black and White is sent by, and that's when we meet Al.
I thought you guys just ate donuts. They're for my wife. Yeah.
Who's played by Reginald Val Johnson from Family Matters. Who is a very lovable desk cop whose whole character arc is that he no longer is willing to pull his gun because he accidentally killed a child. The true message of the story is that it's about a cop who killed a child and needs to learn to have the power to kill again. It's a Christmas movie for the whole family. John begins communicating with Al after he pushes a corpse out of a window, and we get one of cinema's greatest lines.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Backup arrives, and we get the chief, the deputy chief of police, who is suddenly disbelieving everything that John has told Al, and is throwing a wrench in things until the FBI shows up and throws a wrench in his wrench. And that's when we meet Johnson & Johnson Baby Oil. No diddy. John is just going around whacking these guys one by one, no diddy. And we get cool sequence after cool sequence of how he's killing them. The way that he kills Carl's brother and then sends the body up in the elevator is pretty classic.
Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho.
And the way that he kills the Tony Montana guy on top of the table.
Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate. Thanks for the advice.
Then you create this dynamic for the rest of the film where Carl wants revenge for his brother's death, so you have a kind of ultimate antagonist who happens to be the biggest one of all the guys, not by coincidence. But you have interesting different personalities throughout. You have the techie guy who's able to kind of hack into the system, and then you have the Texan dude who's sitting up front and he's just watching a football game. Then you have the Asian dude who just grabs a Crunch bar in the middle of the heist and starts eating stolen candy. So there's just great moments, great character moments with each of the individual terrorists. But of course none are anywhere near as iconic as the great Hans Gruber.
Ask for miracles, dear. I give you the FBI.
Alan Rickman does such a phenomenal job with this character, just plays it up so theatrically throughout. My favorite moment in the movie, at least one of them, when Hans gets caught by John McClane and he pretends to be one of the hostages and he does his American voice, which sounds a lot like Jimmy Stewart. He's like, "Oh no, you're one of them, aren't you?
Please, God, no, you're one of them, aren't you? You're one of them."
And that's a classic. I just love the idea of this European German terrorist who's doing his impression of an American to an American, trying to trick him. Just layers upon layers of comedy there. And then the audience thinking that John is stupid enough to be tricked by this because we have seen Hans. He's only spoken to him, so he only knows his actual voice.
It's just from here. Why don't you come in and
Forget the roof.
So there's just a lot of fun tension there before there's the great twist reveal that he didn't put any bullets in the gun that he handed to him. He knew that it was Hans. The whole side plot with the terrorists trying to crack the safe builds to this incredible moment where we get Ode to Joy, which has been hummed and sang for the last hour of the movie. Now, finally, this epic moment where they're able to trick the FBI into switching the breakers off, emergency lights come on, and the safe, the vault, opens. Oh, there's just so many classic little moments. John tapping the naked picture as he walks by for good luck. Walking over shattered glass, them shooting the glass. Shoot the glass! Shooting the glass on purpose so that it'll cut up his feet and he has to pull shards of glass out of his feet. And it's just such great action. There's so many elements to it that a lot of people wouldn't have thought to even add in there that make the protagonist's journey even more difficult than it was with just with their main antagonists. You're adding in these plot elements, these secondary, tertiary elements throughout the film that are making things harder for the protagonists. You don't make things easier for them, you make things harder for them until they're able to overcome every single thing. And by the end of the movie, if you have your protagonist completely stripped down physically, mentally, metaphorically, to nothing, which in this movie literally is done to him, then you've done pretty much everything right with your protagonist, and still build to a point where it's believable that they would still beat the antagonist by the end. So throughout the movie you have all these classic turn moments, these great tense moments where you think that Hans is going to find out that Holly is married to John, when Ellis shows up and he starts screwing things up and he gets himself killed. I mean, another very funny moment, but it's just another great use of tension and comedy in a screenplay. The movie is shot brilliantly. It's directed fantastically. The effects for a $28 million movie in the 80s is pretty damn impressive. Some big practical explosions throughout. And, you know, the helicopter explosion, John jumping off the roof. There's a lot of really great looking moments in this film. And then, of course, you can't forget about this famous conversation had between John and Hans over the radio, where they're kind of feeling each other out.
Just another American who saw too many movies as a child. Rambo, Marshall Dillon.
And Roy Rogers is mentioned. Hans calls him a cowboy, and you get this classic line.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
The news reporter from Ghostbusters busting into the house, threatening their cleaning lady with INS. When they get the explosion on the camera, he says, "Did you get that?" And then, of course, at the end, you have a repetition of that line when he gets punched in the face. And then he sarcastically says to the cameraman, "Did you get that?" A lot of great callbacks in the movie. The Twinkies, you know, John finds a Twinkie and he eats it.
Eat it, Harvey.
It's old and stale. He's disgusted. He says, "What do they have in these things?" And Al, who's just read the back of a bunch of Twinkies that he just bought, already has it all memorized. The cuts to Argyle are all great, you know, as things are going crazy in the hotel, and then suddenly you cut back to Argyle, and he's just having the time of his life, partying, drinking, listening to music, talking on the phone, until he finds out what's happening, and suddenly the mood changes.
Shut up.
And then even then, he turns on the CB radio and he's cracking up listening to John talking shit to the chief of police. So there's some great moments with Argyle. One by one, John knocks these guys off. Finally, he takes out Carl. And in one last moment of Christmas cheer, John sees the wrapping tape and he comes up with an idea. So he goes to confront Hans, who now has his wife hostage. And he shoots Hans Gruber, who then falls 40 feet, actually. Alan Rickman told the story many times of how they did it without stunt people, they did it completely practically, and they wanted to see the real fear in his eyes. So they told him that they were going to drop him off this 40-foot ledge on the count of 3, and they actually let go on 2, which is why you see this real, genuine terror in his eyes when he's falling. I was watching the movie the other night with that anecdote in mind, and I was counting the seconds, in slow motion, mind you, of Alan Rickman falling. And I thought to myself, you know, they really didn't need to do it from 40 feet up. But that's neither here nor there. Alan Rickman was a phenomenal actor, and cinema misses him to this day. The movie wraps up, Holly and John are back together, Argyle pulls up after Al completes his character arc and takes out Carl. The FBI guys have exploded, so everything's fine now. And then they drive off into the night until New Year's. Now, the age-old question. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I think there is a complicated answer to this, but the short version of it is... duh. It's an action movie. It's a holiday action movie. It's an action film in a Christmas setting. It takes place at Christmas. It's got Christmas music. You've got lines of dialogue related to Christmas. It takes place during a Christmas party. Now I have a machine gun. Ho ho ho. Giant Christmas tree. In fact, many Christmas trees in the movie. Red and green everywhere. Not quite as much as Home Alone, but still an adequate amount for a Christmas film. Lights, music, what more do you want? It's a Christmas movie. Of course it's a Christmas movie. If Die Hard is not a Christmas movie, then Independence Day is not a July 4th movie. No. Oh, no. What? What do you mean? It's not a July 4th movie. It's an aliens movie. It's an alien invasion movie. If we're just going to do this to every single film, what, is Gremlins not a Christmas movie? What are you talking about? All of these movies that take place at Christmas, that have Christmas themes, that have Christmas music, that have Christmas visuals, are Christmas movies! Duh! Anyway, Merry Christmas to all, and to all, a good night. Oh, also, if you wanted to see any other of my videos, you can check out these right here, and let me know in the comments if you have any recommendations for future videos. Thanks so much, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next time.
I know what a TV dinner feels like.